My wife cheated with my best friend and took half of everything in divorce court. Judge awarded her our $3.40 million New York mansion. You're pathetic, she whispered as we left. That night I received a call from a Swiss bank. We've been looking for you for 15 years. The account number they read over the phone contained exactly $47 million. But then they explained how IT got there.
I stood outside the courthouse with nothing but the clothes on my back and a manila envelope filled with legal documents that said I'd officially lost everything. My wife had just walked away with our $3.4 million mansion, half of everything I owned, and a smug little smile like she'd just won a game. As we stepped through the heavy glass doors, she leaned in close. I thought maybe she was going to say something soft, maybe something about the years we spent together. But she didn't. She looked me dead in the eyes and whispered, "You're pathetic." That word hit harder than anything her lawyer said in court. She walked off with Hank, my best friend since I was 20. He didn't even look back. That night I parked my truck behind a diner off Route 9, curled up in the driver's seat, and tried to figure out where I went wrong. Around midnight my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Something told me to answer. A calm voice on the other end said, "Mr. Elridge, we've been trying to reach you for 15 years. This is the Gallon Private Banking Group in Zurich. We believe you are the rightful heir to an account belonging to Roy Elridge." I froze. My Uncle Roy had disappeared nearly 2 decades ago. Then the voice read an account number and paused. "Mr. Elridge, the balance in this account is $47 million. My heart was still pounding when the man added, "There's something you need to know about how it got there. My name is Thomas Elridge. I'm 51 years old, and until last year I thought I had a solid life. I wasn't rich by most people's standards, but I'd worked hard to build something real. I spent 30 years in construction, swinging a hammer, laying down foundation with my own hands, earning every dollar with sweat and busted knuckles. I believed in loyalty, in family, in waking up early and going to bed tired. I thought that was enough to keep a life together. Callie and I met when we were teenagers. I was 21 when we got married. She had this fire in her eyes and a way of lighting up a room without saying much. I fell for her fast and hard. We didn't have much back then, just a 1-bedroom apartment near Poughkeepsie, some second-hand furniture, and big dreams. I'd take any job I could find: roofing, framing, remodeling. Callie worked at a diner during the day and studied nursing at night. We were a team those early years. We celebrated our first tax return like it was a lottery win. We built our credit, bought a beat-up house, and poured everything into fixing it up. I'd work until my fingers bled, and she'd bring me lemonade and sandwich halves, sitting on the front porch and talking about the future. I loved her. I truly did. Eventually, I started my own crew. Word spread, I got bigger jobs, higher bids. One year, I landed a city contract that changed everything. We went from scraping by to actually having something. That was when I surprised her with the mansion. It wasn't some flashy glass-covered palace. It was a classic brick estate with ivy crawling up the sides and tall trees surrounding it like a fortress. Westchester County. Quiet, peaceful, 5 bedrooms, a wine cellar we never used, and a garden. Callie said she'd fill with lavender, but never did. It cost $3.4 million. I paid most of it in cash and financed the rest. I thought I was giving her a dream. She called it a real home, but something shifted after that. Callie started to change. She joined some country club group, then some charity board. Her hair was always done. She started talking more about wine tastings and less about dinner at home. I chalked it up to growth. People change. I figured maybe I just needed to catch up. Still, I tried to keep our life simple. I spent weekends with my daughter, Brandy. She's 23 now, a brilliant girl with my stubborn streak and her mother's wit. We'd watch movies, walk the dogs, fish off the dock when we could. My mother, Eileen, still lives in the house I grew up in just outside Kingston. Every Sunday after church, I'd bring her over to the mansion for dinner, even when Callie wasn't thrilled about it. Then there was Hank. He was more than just a friend. We'd been through everything together. We'd built decks, hunted deer, helped each other move furniture, and drank beer under the stars. When my father passed away, Hank was the one who held my mother's hand at the funeral when I couldn't find the words. I trusted him more than I trusted my own brother. I would have taken a bullet for him. I never saw what was happening. Maybe I didn't want to. Callie and Hank started spending more time together, charity events, late-night planning meetings. She said I was too tired, that I was always working. I didn't argue. I just kept going, thinking if I worked harder she'd see how much I still loved her. But the distance between us grew. We stopped talking about anything real. She slept in the guest room more nights than not. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how we got so far from those days on the porch eating sandwiches. I kept thinking about something my Uncle Roy told me when I was 17. He was the odd one in the family. Drove a Bentley, wore cufflinks to Thanksgiving. He once looked me in the eye and said, "Tommy, never think a roof means safety. Sometimes it just keeps the truth from falling on your head." I didn't understand it back then. I do now. The real collapse wasn't a moment. It was a slow erosion. Trust wore down like stone in a river. I kept hoping she'd turn back around, that we'd find a way to fix it. But she was already gone, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. All that was left was the paperwork. And even then, I didn't expect her to go as far as she did. I didn't see the storm coming until it hit full force. It was a Thursday, I remember that clearly, because I always came home early on Thursdays. I'd been working a job in Syracuse, a large deck extension with custom cedar planks. I wrapped up early, drove straight home, boots caked in dried mud, back aching, ready to surprise Callie with her favorite cannoli from that Italian place she liked in White Plains. I had this stupid idea that maybe we could sit outside together, talk like we used to, maybe find a little spark to hang on to. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed Hank's truck parked near the garage. Nothing strange about that. He came by now and then, helped me with odd repairs, sometimes dropped off wild game after a hunting trip, but something felt off. The house was too quiet, the air too still. I walked in through the back, past the kitchen, and I heard a sound, a laugh. It was soft, muffled, coming from upstairs. Her laugh. That same laugh she used to give me when I tickled her behind the knees, the one that made her eyes wrinkle at the corners. But it wasn't meant for me this time. I didn't storm up the stairs, I didn't yell, I didn't want to believe what my gut was already screaming. I walked up slowly, each step heavier than the last. When I reached the bedroom door, I heard Hank's voice, then hers again. I opened the door. There they were, my wife, my best friend, no shame, no panic. Just the kind of quiet that follows when two people know they've been caught but don't care enough to explain it. Hank scrambled to pull on his shirt. Callie didn't move. She just sat on the edge of the bed and looked at me. Her face didn't change, not a flicker of guilt. She crossed her legs, fixed her hair, and said in the calmest voice I'd ever heard, "You're early." Hank tried to say something. I don't remember the words. Something hollow, something weak. I wasn't listening. I turned and walked out. I didn't scream, I didn't punch the wall. I went down to the garage, sat on a stack of plywood, and stared at the floor for what felt like an hour. Everything that had been brewing over the last few years suddenly made sense. The late nights, the fake smiles, the way she started pulling away from my daughter, from my mother, from me. That night, I slept in the guest room. The cannoli stayed in its box on the counter. The next morning, it was in the trash. And Callie had filed for divorce. There was no argument, no begging, no pretending. She was done, and she wanted what she thought was hers. Half. More than half, if she could get it. I tried to be civil. I told her we could settle quietly. She laughed and said, "You're the builder, not the brain." Let the court decide she hired one of the most expensive divorce attorneys in the state, a sharp, cold man named Donovan. Clean suit, white teeth, eyes like a shark. He shredded my reputation in court. Claimed I was emotionally unstable, said I had a temper. Twisted the truth until it barely resembled our life. They painted me as a controlling workaholic who neglected his wife. They pulled text messages out of context, called on two former subcontractors who had sued me over a payment dispute years ago. They even subpoenaed my financial records from a tough year in the recession to suggest I'd been hiding assets. I sat there, suit too tight around my neck, watching my life get torn apart in front of strangers. Callie didn't cry. Not once. She wore a black dress, hair pinned up, legs crossed like she was attending a fashion show instead of a courtroom. When Brandy testified, trying to speak for me, trying to say her mother had changed. Callie wouldn't even look at her. After 9 long months of hearings and legal battles, the judge issued his ruling. The mansion was hers. Most of our savings hers. Retirement account split. My tools, my truck, and the small sparse apartment I'd rented just to have a roof over my head, that was what I got. I wasn't surprised by the decision. I was surprised by how empty I felt when it came down. Not angry, not sad, just numb. Like I'd been watching someone else's story play out, and I was just the guy in the background. Outside the courthouse, I stood alone. Hank was nowhere in sight. I imagined he was already inside the mansion, helping her celebrate. Maybe pouring champagne into the crystal glasses I had unpacked the day we moved in. Callie walked past me with her lawyer beside her. She looked over at me just once. No emotion, no hesitation. She leaned in and whispered it. "You're pathetic." Then she turned and walked away. I didn't chase her. I didn't say a word. I walked to the parking garage, climbed into my truck, and sat behind the wheel with my hands still shaking. I had lost my wife, my best friend, my home, and the future I spent 30 years building. But that night, everything was about to change. I couldn't face the white walls and stale air of that rented apartment. Instead, I drove north. I didn't have a plan, just a need to get away from the city, from everything that reminded me of what I had lost. Around 10 p.m., I pulled into a diner parking lot off Route 9, killed the engine, and leaned my head back. The phone rang. Unknown number. I let it ring twice before answering. My first thought was that it might be the court, or maybe Callie, calling to rub in what she had taken. I almost hung up. A man with a calm European accent asked, "Is this Thomas Elridge?" I hesitated. "Who's asking?" "This is Simon Keller with Gallon Private Banking Group, Zurich. We've been trying to reach you for several years. Are you the nephew of Roy Elridge?" My Uncle Roy hadn't crossed my mind in a long time. He had been my father's older brother, the oddball in a family of carpenters and farmers. He wore expensive suits, smoked Cuban cigars, and had this air about him like he knew something the rest of us didn't. He came around once every few years, handed me crisp $100 bills on my birthday, and then disappeared again. He hadn't been seen since I was in my 20s. Rumor was he moved to Europe, made a fortune, then vanished. I cleared my throat. "Yeah, Roy was my uncle. Why?" The man continued, "Mr. Elridge, you are the sole listed beneficiary to a dormant account. We are required to contact you before its automatic liquidation. The account has not been touched for 15 years. Your uncle gave specific instructions to release the funds only after a certain legal condition had been met." "What condition?" "We were to wait until you were no longer legally bound by a marriage license." The words hit like a gust of cold air. I sat up straighter. "What kind of funds are we talking about?" There was a pause. "The account contains $47,089,421.77 as of this evening's statement." I didn't speak. I couldn't. My hands started to tremble. I looked down at the dashboard like the numbers might show up there to confirm what I had heard. The man asked if I was still on the line. I said yes. Barely. He explained that my uncle had transferred a series of off-the-book investments, including private equities and old-world banking bonds, into this account over a span of 10 years before vanishing from the financial world. The money had grown slowly, consistently, waiting in a vault protected by silence and legal shielding. I asked why I hadn't been contacted earlier. "Your uncle was meticulous. He did not trust your spouse." His words, not mine. "He instructed us to wait until your marital status changed. He said, and I quote, 'Tommy needs to be free before he remembers who he is.'" The phrase stunned me. I remembered Roy saying something similar when I was a teenager, back when I thought he was just a flashy old man with too many secrets. He had taken me fishing once when I was 16, and I remembered him saying, "Money's just a mirror, kid. It'll show you what you're made of. Just make sure you know who you are when you see the reflection." I never forgot that, even when I didn't understand it. The banker continued, "We require your physical presence in Zurich to process final identification and paperwork. We will cover all travel and accommodation expenses. The funds can be transferred wherever you designate." I didn't say yes right away. I told him I needed time. He understood and gave me a direct contact number. After the call, I sat there in the dark cab of my truck, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only solid thing in my life. I looked up at the stars through the windshield. Somewhere out there, my entire reality had just shifted, but I didn't feel powerful. I felt small, confused, caught between two lives. I called my mother the next morning and told her everything. She didn't react with excitement or disbelief. She just said, "That man always did know more than he let on. Maybe now you can finally breathe." Brandy was the next person I called. She was quiet for a while, then said, "Dad, you deserve this. But don't let it turn you into someone you're not." I booked a flight to Zurich that afternoon. No hesitation. I packed a duffel bag with 2 pairs of jeans, 3 shirts, a worn leather wallet, and the watch my father gave me when I graduated high school. I left everything else behind. I didn't tell Callie. She didn't deserve to know. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need a courtroom. What I needed was to find out what my uncle left me. Not just the money, but the reason. Because something told me this wasn't just about dollars in a bank account. It was about something much deeper. The plane landed in Zurich on a gray Monday morning. The city looked like a postcard, clean streets, old stone buildings, sharp suits everywhere. I hadn't been outside the country since my honeymoon to Mexico, and now here I was, walking through a Swiss airport with a bank invitation tucked in my coat pocket. A driver met me at arrivals. Black Mercedes. He held a sign with my name and greeted me with a firm handshake and a polite nod. No small talk. He drove straight through the heart of the city and up a hill overlooking Lake Zurich. The car stopped in front of a stone building with tall iron gates and gold letters etched into the arch. Gallon Private Banking Group. Inside, everything smelled like leather and fresh polish. I was escorted through a long hallway into a private office that looked more like a library. Mahogany bookshelves, a massive globe, and a view of the lake that could quiet your soul. A man in his early 60s stepped forward with a warm smile and introduced himself as Simon Keller, the same man from the phone. "Mr. Elridge, welcome. We've been waiting a long time for you." He poured me coffee, handed me a thick folder, and began to explain everything. Uncle Roy hadn't just vanished. He had intentionally removed himself from the American financial system. He had taken his investments, sold his properties, and moved his capital into a trust protected under multiple foreign jurisdictions. He had used shell companies, old money channels, and insider banking codes. It wasn't illegal, but it was extremely private. The folder held letters. Real, handwritten letters from Roy, addressed to me, locked away until my divorce was finalized. In the first letter, he wrote, "Tommy, I know this won't make sense right away, but I've watched you from a distance. I saw how hard you worked. I saw the kind of man you became. I always wanted to leave you something, not just money, but freedom. I couldn't give it to you while you were married to that woman. I'm sorry, but I never trusted her. I saw through her long before you did." Another letter included a journal entry from years earlier when I was just a kid. "Tommy builds with his hands. He thinks with his heart. He'll be a better man than I ever was." I had to stop reading. My eyes welled up. For years, I thought Roy had forgotten about us. Turns out he was planning something the entire time, something for me. Simon slid a document across the table. It authorized the full release of the funds into any account I named. He explained the total assets, including stocks, gold holdings, and a private villa in the south of France that was technically also mine. My hands shook as I signed. Just like that, my life changed. Again. But it wasn't just about the money. It was about what came next. The flight home was different. I wasn't the same man who left. The bitterness from the divorce hadn't disappeared, but something had shifted inside me. I felt grounded again, not because I had millions, but because I finally understood that I hadn't lost everything. I had just been stripped down to who I really was. The first call I made when I landed was to Brandy. I told her everything. She didn't ask for anything. She only said, "Does this mean you're coming back home?" I told her yes. But home wouldn't be that empty apartment, and it definitely wouldn't be the mansion my ex-wife now lived in with my ex-best friend. I bought a ranch house outside Nashville. It had open land, a wraparound porch, and enough space for Brandy to visit any time she wanted. I fixed it up myself. Installed the windows, laid the flooring, built the deck. Every nail went in with purpose. A week later, Callie found out. She called. I let it ring. She called again. This time, I answered. "Tom," she said, her voice softer than I'd heard in years. "I made a mistake. I never stopped loving you." I was angry and confused. "We could try again." I let her talk. Then I replied, "You didn't love me when I had everything. You loved what I gave you. Now you want back in because I'm worth more on paper. I'm not the same man you walked away from." She started to cry. I waited. Then I said, "I forgive you, Callie. But I'll never forget what you said to me outside that courtroom, and I'll never be yours again." I hung up. Hank tried calling too. He left a message. "Tom, man to man, I messed up. Things got complicated. I should have been honest. I deleted it without listening to the rest. I didn't need apologies. I didn't need revenge. I needed peace. And I found it. The last gift my uncle left me wasn't in Swiss francs or property deeds. It was the truth. He saw what I couldn't. He gave me the means to rebuild, not just a house or a bank account, but a life that was mine again. And this time, I wouldn't waste a single moment of it. I wake up most mornings before the sun, just like I always have. Old habits stick. But now, instead of rushing out the door in work boots with a thermos full of black coffee, I sit on the porch of my new home and listen to the quiet. The house is nothing flashy. It's a ranch-style place with a long gravel driveway, an old oak tree out front, and a creaky porch swing I built with my own hands. I don't need marble floors or million-dollar chandeliers. I just need honesty, peace, and the kind of silence that comes without guilt or shame. Brandy visits often. She brings her guitar, sits on the edge of the porch, and strums while I grill steaks or just sip coffee. She tells me about her life, her goals, her ideas for opening a small cafe. I offered her the money to start it, but she has to earn it herself. That's how I know she'll make it. She's got fire, but it's steady. I see the best of both her parents in her, my grit and her mother's focus. I just hope she learns to love better than we did. My mother, Eileen, still lives in the house I grew up in. She refuses to move, even though I offered to buy her a new place. She says, "I have everything I need right here." I get it now. You don't always need to upgrade to move forward. Sometimes standing still in the right place is enough. Callie never called again. Hank never showed up at my door. The life they chose is theirs to carry. I don't wish them pain, but I no longer carry any part of their story on my back. I've spent the last few months learning how to enjoy stillness. I bought a dog, a shepherd mix named Boone. He follows me everywhere. I joined a local veterans group, even though I never served, just to volunteer and lend a hand. I find peace in building things for people who need them. Ramps, decks, benches for parks. It reminds me that the work of your hands still matters, no matter how heavy your bank account gets. I also made a decision. I took a portion of the money and started a foundation, the Elridge Grant, to help single fathers who are rebuilding after divorce. I remember those nights sleeping in my truck, not knowing where to go, feeling like the world had shut me out. No man should ever feel like that alone. If I can help even one of them get back on their feet, then maybe all of this, everything I lost and everything I gained, will mean something more. The greatest lesson I've learned is this: your worth is not measured by what you lose or what you own. It's measured by what you can rebuild when everything is stripped away. Money didn't fix me. It didn't heal the betrayal or erase the pain, but it gave me a second chance. And I used it to become the man I used to be before life wore me down. So if you're watching this and you've been broken, if someone walked out on you or took everything you thought made you who you are, I want you to know this. There's something inside you that can't be taken. That part of you is still there. You just have to dig deep enough to find it. And when you do, protect it. Build around it. Let it lead you home. Thank you for listening to my story. If this story meant something to you, if it moved you, or made you think about your own life, I ask you to do 3 simple things. Like the video, it helps more people see it. Comment below, tell me your story, or just say what part hit you the hardest. Subscribe to the channel. There's more to come, and you won't want to miss what's next. This isn't the end of my story. It's just the beginning of something better. Thanks for being part of it.
After listening to today's story, Perhaps it has raised some new questions in your mind, or maybe it has brought back some old memories. Every day on Reddit, new experiences and moments create fresh stories, and they connect all of us. Everyone has their own unique journey in life, and we all try to understand the world in our own way. These kinds of moments remind us that we are all human, sometimes happy, sometimes sad, and always learning something new. If you enjoyed this story, feel free to share it with your friends. Your thoughts and feedback are always valuable to us, as they motivate us to create even better content. Every story has its own unique angle, and our goal is to understand everyone's perspective and make our content diverse and relatable. Stories like these help us realize that life's journey is different for everyone, and by hearing other stories, we learn something new. You can also share your own stories with us. Your experiences are valuable to us as well, and if you enjoyed this video, please leave your feedback. We aim to create content that brightens your mind and gives you new ideas every time. If you've already seen this video before, your feedback is still important. With every piece of feedback, we can improve our content and bring a new perspective to our viewers. Today, what we saw was just a small part of the many stories shared on Reddit and across the world. It's a reminder of how we all try to understand life by sharing our experiences with each other. This video was only an example of how we try to connect with others through storytelling, learning about different sides of life. We hope to continue sharing such stories that help us all learn and grow together. Thank you for your time, and don't forget to keep an eye out for more stories coming soon. If you haven't already, please like and follow for more amazing content. Your support keeps us going, and we will strive to bring you more thought-provoking and heartwarming stories. Until next time, take care and stay curious. *.